Welcome, everybody, to another brand new episode of It's My Wrestling Podcast. You know me. I'm, of course, as always, your host, Chris Dees. Please, before I get started, make sure you hit subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube and hit follow if you're listening on audio platforms. Really, really helps me out. Thank you very much. Today, I am joined by just an absolute top-tier guest, somebody who I am beyond words excited to speak to. He is a part of wrestling royalty. His family over in Canada, honest to God, an absolute wrestling royalty family. He has held loads of titles in the NWA, wrestled for WCW, in WWF. He's a 3-time tag team champion and an intercontinental champion, and he's the man responsible for one of the most iconic wrestling characters in history, the Mountie. Of course, he is the one and only Mr. Jacques Rougeau. Jacques, thank you so much for joining me, man. How's it going?
Well, it's going really good now. After your introduction, I feel like I want to go in the ring. But thank you so much, Chris, for having me on your show.
No, like I say, thank you. The pleasure is all mine. It really is. How are things going over in Canada? Is everything getting back to normal a little bit more now?
Yeah, I don't know about normal, but you know, there's a lot of people that are not very, very happy with the way the government right now is running things. And it's like that in different countries. We're really caught up in a mess now around the world. But I see light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully, if there's not another variant that comes and surprises us. But we are starting tomorrow morning actually to open up things. Like the restaurants are starting to open up halfway, and the gyms are starting to open up, and so we see light at the end of the tunnel. But it's been a very, very hard time for everybody around the planet the last 2 years, but I kept my morale very good because I kept working out there. I'm in great shape, you know. So when you go to the gym, it helps a lot. You know, I had my own gym, so I've been doing a lot of time in the gym. So and the sun's coming. I don't know if you guys know out in your area, your part of the world, if you know Phil, la marmotte, or if he sees a shadow, if we're going to have a long spring or a short spring, what's it called? The Phil from Pennsylvania. You know, it's like a rat that comes out in the spring, and if he sees the shadow, and then so that's coming in on Wednesday, and then I also am very happy because the what's it called, la fête des couples qui s'en vient, the Saint-Valentin. We have I don't know if you have that for lovers on the 14th of February.
Yes,
I don't know if it's around the world. That's coming too. So that's a good sign of spring. So we're all excited here now, and things are probably looking up.
Awesome. Good. It's good to hear. When you said 2 years, I was like, wow, it really has been 2 years. Like, it's been a long 2 years, but it's gone quite quickly.
It's amazing, and but you know, it's I took that time also to get into a big project, and so it gave me time and to put all this together. And I'll tell you about this project whenever you want to. But I have a huge wrestling project coming in Canada that's going to be a competition nationwide in Canada. And it's going to be seen around the world on YouTube, and we're working to try to get some TV stations into this. This week we actually have 4 TV stations that we're meeting, and hopefully they'll pick that up. But what a great opportunity for Canadian wrestlers who want to have a chance to make it in the big leagues, and that's the opening I have for them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm looking forward to talking about that. I've been doing a little bit of research into it. It looks very, very cool. I know you've got a lot that you want to share about that. I wanted to start off, though. I wanted to obviously talk about wrestling, first and foremost, your career. But I want to talk about your family, like I mentioned at the start there in the intro. Like, for anybody who isn't aware, I don't know how they could not be aware, but you come from an incredible wrestling lineage, you know, 4 generations of the Rougeau family dating all the way back to the 40s. Huge part of the industry. It's massively influential, especially in the Canadian scene as well. So growing up, was it a case that you had no choice than to be a wrestler? Were you always going to be a wrestler?
It's funny that you say that, because ever since I was 4 years old, are you going to be like your dad? Are you going to be like your dad, a wrestler? And it seems like they brainwashed me. The fans brainwashed me, and that's what I became. But I've always wanted to be a wrestler all my life. And yes, of course, 4 generations of wrestling is something else. And my great great uncle Eddie Auger, and then my uncle Johnny Rougeau was brother with my father, so they were the Rougeau brothers, the original Rougeau brothers, Johnny and Jacques. And then he had 3 sons. My father was Raymond, myself, the fabulous Rougeau brothers, plus my Armand, my other brother, who wrestled locally in the province of Quebec. And my 3 sons did some wrestling after that. Yep. So, you know, I got some great news for you, Chris, by the way, for the collectors, people that are collecting items and stuff. Greg Gagne from Minneapolis, where his father was Vern Gagne. He owned the territory before the WWF and all that stuff. They just signed a toy deal and they're going to have all the wrestling families, like the Funks and the Hart. And so they're going to have my great-great-uncle Eddie to my sons, and it's going to be the fourth generation of dolls, which for me it's the most important thing of my life, because wrestling has been my life, and what an honor I'm so in debt towards Greg Gagne, who took that project, because he immortalized our family. And that's the first guy who ever does that for the fourth generation. So what a great thing. You'll be able probably to get that on YouTube eventually, probably in June or July. But what a great honor for me as a dreamer, a wrestler, and to have those dolls put out. Of course, when we talk about dolls, I could always tell you I had the Mountie doll, and then I had a bunch of dolls made. I had Zashman in Australia made these dolls. They're fabulous Rougeau brothers. You can even see my brother Raymond's mustache.
Mustache, yeah.
but it was those are all fun. But when you talk about 4 generations, the whole family, my sons, my brothers, my uncles, great uncles, what a great honor for us.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like, that's not, like you said, that's nothing that's ever been done before. You could buy all of the individual dolls and say that you've got the 4 generations, but is it going to be like one big pack full of all of the family?
I think so. I haven't seen them yet. I just signed the contract. That's all I know, and I filled in the bios. But I don't know how it's going to be done, to be honest. But I know for sure that it would be awesome if it was in one package. Yeah. One big package. You go from my sons all the way to my great-great-uncle. That would be awesome to put over the man on the TV there or something like that in my living room. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I will be checking them out. I'm a big collector, so I will 100% be checking them out if they come. Okay. Depends if they come over in the UK, but I can just import them. It's fine. I'll import them from the US. That'll be really cool. So
now since we're friends, you could call me and I'll send you a package.
Okay, brilliant. It's all about who you know, isn't it? All about who you know. You said that since you were about the age of 4, you wanted to be a wrestler. So, like, how long? This is something I'm always interested in with wrestlers' children. Like, how long did it take for you to realize that wrestling was a work, that wrestling was choreographed or whatever?
Great. That's a great question, Chris. I'm really happy you asked me that question. No one's ever asked me that question. That's awesome.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
I was about 12 years old, and we were in one of the towns in Quebec. It was called Three Rivers, and my father was wrestling against Tor Kamada. He was a big Japanese guy, Tor Kamada. And he set my father's leg up on the first bottom rope there, and he climbed sitting up like Yokozuna. He was a guy like Yokozuna. And he went up on the second rope to sit down like this, and he'd do an ass bump on the leg when it was on the turnbuckle. And he slipped, and he broke my father's leg. And so we were in that town, let's say Monday night. I'll say a fictive day there. Let's say it's Monday night. And on Tuesday, my father had a big match where it was close to our home, and he was the main event against Michel Justice Dubois. It was, his name in the States was Alexis Smirnov, but I don't know if you know.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I know the name, yeah.
And he was a French Canadian, but he moved to LA and he did all kinds. He had a great career, but his best wrestling career was in Montreal. And so he was scheduled to wrestle in main event the next night. So my father had broken the leg. We went to the hospital in Three Rivers that night, and the doctor said we're gonna have to put it in a cast. And my father said, no. He says, I got a match I gotta do tomorrow. He says, Mr. Rougeau, you have to put a cast. Your tibia is broken. He says, yeah, but he says, listen, just tape it up really hard. So anyway, long story short, give me pills, and then he gave him pills. So we got to the show the next night, and here I am, a virgin. I don't know wrestling's a work. I don't know nothing. My father's my hero. I'm 12 years old, and my father's always been my hero. So anyway, I get in the dressing room. So my father brings me over, and he says to me, he says, listen, Jacques, he says, when you come to the ring tonight, he says, I want you to accompany me. And he says, like you always do, and I give you my jacket. When they introduce me, I give you my jacket in the corner. He says, Michel Dubois, he's going to come to you, and he's going to offer to give you a handshake. And I'm looking at my dad, like, how do you know that? And I'm going like, so anyway, he says that when he offers you the hand, he says, just let yourself soft. He says, just stay soft. And he said, he may do a little something to you, he may not. But he says, just play with it, So I'm looking at my father, kind of a little disappointed, like, like the Santa Claus is not real, like, holy mackerel, he's just destroying my image that I had of him. And I'm going, but I love my father so much. I said, okay. So anyway, so I go up by the ring, and they introduce my father's going with a broken leg, he's all wrapped up, and he's going to the ring. So when he comes into the ring, he's trying to hide it. And he gets the ring, he takes his jacket off, and the people love my father. He was a superhero here. So then they announced him, and then he took his robe off, and he gave it to me. And then there he came. Alexei Smirnoff. He's coming towards me, like my dad called it. Anyway, so he's coming towards me, and then he gives me that handshake. So I tend my hand like this, like I'm going to give him a handshake. I think my father maybe he wants to have a clean match. Maybe that's why he has a plan or something. I don't know. So I let my hand out like this, like I'm going to shake. And he slaps the hell out of me. He slapped me in the neck, and my feet went flying. I was like 12 years old, I think, 13 years old. I can't remember. I was really young, and my feet went flying. And then but it didn't hurt me. He did it well, I guess. What I know. So anyway, so when I took the bump, I rolled to the floor. My father turned around and he knocked him out with one punch. Boom! And the people went nuts. And the referee counted him to 10. He was knocked out. He couldn't get up anymore. My father did the match. The people went wild. He saved the show. My father was a tough guy. I know that's not the subject right now, but I just want you to let you know, for 24 hours, my father was walking with a broken leg. And so he covered him. He managed to get on one knee and he covered him 1, 2, 3. The people were so happy. And then he went and had a cast for 3 months, but that was when I was first initiated as wrestling was a work. And then not long after that, my brother Raymond, he was wrestling Tarzan the Boot Tyler. I don't know if you know Tarzan the Boot Tyler. He's a very, very well popular wrestler in Quebec. Of course, there was also many small leagues. You can't know them all. But he was, if you go look up Tarzan the Boot Tyler on internet, you'll find him. And he was a guy that, yeah. He was a big heel and stuff. And so then I was a little smarter now. So I did something with my brother Raymond, where it was like 3 months later, where Tarzan the Boot Tyler, I was told that he was going to come and grab me. So now I was getting smart of it to the business. So I said, sure, but then he picked me up and he body slammed me, in the middle of the ring. And it was so funny because he was so worried to hurt me that when he body slammed me, it looked like the shits. It was a horrible bump. It was like almost like he put me to sleep, and I was 2 months old and in the cradle. But he didn't want to hurt me. But it was fun. So then I started getting with the business and then I really wanted to get into the business because in real life, I'm not a fighter. I'm an entertainer. Some wrestlers are really tough and really street fighters and stuff. I'm not. I'm just a Hollywood entertainer. So then I start really liking wrestling because I was saying, but like from the age of 8 to 12, I was always afraid of it. I was a little chicken. I said, do I want to get into wrestling? I'm going to get beat up and this and that. But when I found out it was a work, then I really fell in love with the business. And holy shit, I'm a good comedian. So I'm going to have fun in this business, and we're not hurting each other. So it's all good.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I was literally going to ask, like, when you found out, did it put you off at all? But obviously it didn't. It made you fall in love with it even more because then you knew that you were acting then, weren't you? A bit more. You were entertaining a bit more.
Exactly, and that made the whole difference in the world. And up till this day, I started wrestling at 17 years old professionally, and I finished 3 years ago. I wrestled like 41 years of career, and Lord knows I had such a great time. It's funny because when you get older, you look back at all the good things in life. But I could tell you I had some rough and hard times when I started in the business, or traveling from territory to territory, not making any money, surviving, 4 in the car to pay the gas to get the places, working out every day, away from home. You're not with your family. It's a horrible life. But, but once you look back at all the accomplishments, what a great life it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everybody that I've spoken to from your sort of era is the same. They say, like, at the time, they were like, oh, man, am I wasting my life? Like, I'm not spending time with my family and my kids and stuff. But then you made so many friends and been to so many places around the world that you might never have been to if it wasn't for wrestling. You've experienced so much.
Hey, I remember in 77, I started, my first territory was with Bret Hart's father, Stu Hart, at Stampede Wrestling in Calgary. And from then on in 78, I went to Mexico. And then, Mexico, wow, I landed in Guadalajara, Mexico City, actually. And then there was no word of English or French. I was bilingual, but there was no word of either because I was in the industrial part of Mexico. I wasn't on the beach with the palm trees. I was in the industrial part where everybody spoke Spanish and I couldn't understand a word. I remember going to the first restaurants and going like and then they said, the waitress said, comida. Yeah, yes, comida.
Yeah.
And then something that was spicy, because everything was spicy over there. I'd say something like, so she said, no bueno. I'd say, no me gusta. And I learned the language like that, But what a great experience of life to go in every culture, every country, different languages, and learning from scratch like a baby going to school. That was really, it makes you grow, it makes you mature pretty fast in life.
Yeah, I can imagine it does. It sounds incredible. It sounds absolutely incredible. I wish I could have been somehow involved in the business. You said that you had a 41-year wrestling career, and I think it's safe to say you've done a lot of amazing things, especially with your brother, all the different things that you've won in the NWA, WWF, all that kind of stuff. But like I said at the start, you were responsible for one of my favorite and one of the most iconic characters. Like, you say the Mountie to anybody and they can picture the Mountie. It's one, you know what I mean? One of them characters where you don't have to think about it. You're like, oh yeah, the hat, the red clothes, all of that kind of stuff, the boots. So I have to ask about the Mountie. There you go, exactly. You see that image in your head straight away. Like it's an image like no other. It's so bold and so memorable. But I have to ask about the character because, like I said, it is one of my favorites. Who came up with the idea for the Mountie? Is it something that you pitched? Is it something that somebody else pitched to you?
Absolutely Vince McMahon's idea, 100%, except for the shock stick. The shock stick was my idea. Because when he had me come in, as the Mountie, the first thing I asked him, because when I was young, then again, at the age of 8, 9, 10 years old, there was a manager in our dressing room that was called Eddie the Brain Creechman, one of the greatest managers of all time. If he would have been in a different era, he would have been in the WWF as much as Bobby Heenan or Jimmy Hart. He was a great manager. And he had an electric cattle prod when I was young, and he used to come in the dressing room, and he used to scare the shit out of me with that shock stick, like really. So I lived it because he used to tease me with it a little bit. I'd start running, I'd be afraid. So I told Vince, I said, hey, I got a gimmick that's never been seen, and I said I'd like to bring it with me. So he says, go ahead, Jacques, and bring it. And that's where I brought in the shock stick, which was amazing. Terrifying for the boys, but amazing for me.
I read that it was it didn't go down quite as well in Canada though. You weren't allowed to wrestle as the Mountie sometimes. Like what was that all about? How did you get around that?
All right, I'll tell you the story. It's amazing because the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Oh my God. It's like they have an expression, get off of your horse there, that we say, when you're too snobbish in life or something, get off your horse. But anyway, long story short is the Mounties. It was funny at the beginning, but my character was growing so strong. And I was such a good performer as a heel. I was really hated by everybody and I was mean. And then finally, the real Royal Canadian Mounted Police send an injunction against the WWF, say, hey, we're not like that, the Mounties. You're giving a bad image of the Mounties around the world, so you may not use that character anymore. But they killed my character. And it's amazing because the world was in love with my character. And from one day to the other, I had to be off TV in Canada. But the thing is Vince, when he was doing his TV tapings, TV tapings were done in 2 days, like per month, where all the shows were put together. So he couldn't put me on the show just because of one country who didn't understand that there's difference between real life and entertainment. Like so many times I watch movies and I see dirty cops, and I see it's movies, and they don't take the movies off the scene or off the TV because it's a movie. You have to make the difference. So when the Royal Canadian Mounted Police got me off the air, they killed this Mountie. So that's why not long after that, I came back as the Quebecers and with Carl Ouellette, we dressed up the same thing. We cut the sleeves off and then we had a song say, we're not the Mounties. We're handsome. That was like a little shove to the Mounties. Like, hey, wake up, this is entertainment, and so that hurt me a lot. But that character was I remember I remember this thing that happened. It was amazing. My first match with Koko B Ware. My first match. When I took my big shock stick out in the dressing room and I was going like bzz, 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 and it was a real one. People thought it was a work, but it was a real one. What we did is my friend he was a genius and mechanic. He took a lawnmower and he took the lawnmower coil inside and he reverses the wires in there, which make the big flame at the end there. And if you ask me how much it stains, I don't know. How much it hurts, I don't know. I never tried it on me, but I'll tell you what. When I got in the ring, my stick here had two buttons on it. He had the on and off here, and underneath you had the emergency button right here with my pinky. And I had two buttons. I wanted to make sure that when I put that emergency off, that I didn't zap someone with this. I was afraid of my own stick. So anyway, when I got in the ring with Koko B Ware, there we are, 20 minutes in the match. He's soaking wet. Now he's sweating. He's doing the job for me. He's doing me the favor. So he's lying down in the middle. And there I come with my stick, and don't ask me what happened. I must have flipped that pinky off or something. So anyway, I start zapping him. Bzzz, and he's soaking wet now. And now he's starting to shake in the ring. And my God, he's doing a good job. And I'm saying to myself, wow, Koko, that's a great thing you're doing for me. And the next thing when you burn your skin, sometimes it smells like pig. It smells funny so I starting to smell that thing. So I'm saying to myself, wow, Vince is good, man. He even has the smell effect. This is really good. So when I get backstage and there I'm waiting for Koko B Ware to thank him so much because he made me look so good. And then he comes out, I'm going to kill you. And then all the boys in the dressing room like, I'm going, holy shit. And he really wanted to kick my ass. But we're the greatest friends, and like I always tell on my podcast, hey, you should have a podcast with Koko B Ware and ask him the side of the story. It's just amazing but he's the nicest guy. But anyway, and like a guy said to me one time, he says, I think Gorilla Monsoon on the outside was saying, is he going to cook his bird there? Is he going to cook his bird? But another thing I want to tell you about this character and this stick especially, the Bulldogs, they weren't always the greatest, the guys in the dressing room. They were ribbers, they played jokes all the time. And one time they took my stick and that was in Europe. And I can't remember, I think it was in Manchester. And do you remember Virgil, that was the manager of the $1 Million Man?
Yeah.
And Virgil's a great guy, a nice guy, but he's like me. He's not a fighter, he's just, we're in there for the fun. And the Bulldog had took my chalk stick and he was running around with him in the it's funny when you think about it, but it's not funny when you're the one being run after, But anyway, that stick really made some noise in the WWF. It really did, yes.
That Koko B Ware story might be my favorite wrestling story of all time. Now, I had no idea about that, and I'm so happy that you shared that. That is fantastic. You were there like, oh, Koko, you're the best seller of all time. This is amazing.
Yeah, you didn't smell like that here, Pete. That's awesome, And I had no freaking clue what was going on because I was so excited and so nervous for my first match, and as the Mountie, and I think it was in front of 18,000 people. So anyway,
that's my crazy. God. That's crazy. I'm so happy with that story. That's brilliant. That's put me off. I can't remember what I was going to ask you now. I was just going to ask about. Obviously, you played the Mountie for. You didn't play it for that long. I think it was only for a few years, wasn't it? The character.
Until the Mounties they took me off the air until they had the lawsuit because I was on fire. I was going against Bossman in the Jailhouse Match at the time. And they gave us 3 months notice to get off the air. So they did a little something with. I did a little something with Bret for a month and Sergeant Slaughter for another month, and then they just took my character off the air. But I was at the peak, and I don't know if you remember that Jailhouse match I had with Big Boss Man, where the loser had to go spend the night in jail at the Madison Square Garden in New York. That was a classic. That was a classic too.
Funnily enough, that is honestly literally what I was just about to ask you about, because I was going to say one of the storylines that I remember the most was the Jailhouse match, and then you spending the night in the cell, and you had the two guys in the cell with you, the guy who was a little bit effeminate, and liked you a little bit. Let's say that's probably my favorite storyline or favorite match or program that you had. But what was yours? What was your favorite thing that you did as the Mountie? Which
no, definitely. You know, the favorite thing I did as the Mountie, to be honest with you, I'd have to say your story you just said there. But there's something that was even funnier. For me, that was the greatest moment of all time of the Mountie. It was like at the time when the wrestlers would come into territory, about 3-4 weeks ahead of time, before they made their debut, they had some little vignettes that would put on TV just to introduce the character. And so when they did the character, so Vince had called me up. I'd been off for a year, and then he called me up and he says, Jacques, he says, we're going to prepare. I want to bring you in as a Mountie. And I was going like, a Mountie? And they said, yeah. So he says, we're going to do a few vignettes up in Canada. We're going to send the crew up there. And so the vignette was amazing. The vignette, one of the vignettes, the best one I've ever had. I always say in my stand-up shows too, because I do stand-up shows now and everything. And I always bring that one. It's so funny. I'm on my horse and I'm in the park and I'm there with my horse with my serious face on. And so this car pulls up beside me and it's two Americans. But they're not really Americans. They're Canadians, but they're playing the role as two Americans that are lost in Canada. They want to go back home. So they pull up beside me. So this guy comes up and he says to me, he says, excuse me, officer. Excuse me, officer. And I'm on my horse up here and I look down at him and I go, I'm not an officer, I'm the Mountie. So he looks at me like scared, and then he looks at his wife in the car and he says, holy Christ, I think I just hit a nut here. So then he looks back up at me and he says, excuse me, Mr. Mountie. He says, can you tell me how we get back to the USA? We're lost. And I'm on my horse like this, and I get off my horse slowly. I get beside the car and I look at him and I said, come here. So he looks at his girlfriend. He's not sure if he wants to get out of the car. And he looks at his girlfriend. His girlfriend says, come on, chicken, get out of the car. So then he gets out of the car and I say, come here. So then I bring him in the front of my horse and I take the horse like this under his chin. And I look at him and I said, you see that part of my horse? It always points to Canada. Come here. And then I bring him at the rear of my horse and then I lift the tail up completely. You could see really the rear end of the horse is in the camera. And then I look at the guy and I say, you see that part of my horse? It always points to the USA. And the guy goes like this, and he just jumps in his car and he starts spinning his wheels and he gets out of there. They showed that for 3-4 weeks, and I can tell you, the Americans don't have a sense of humor. When I went to wrestle, I was being thrown rocks on my head when I arrived at the parking lot early in the day. Like, you know, people were waiting, the groupies up there were waiting, and they were just bombarding me with rocks and stuff. But that was the most, it was amazing because Jesse the Body Ventura was doing the commentaries and Mean Gene Okerlund. And it was always fun to hear Jesse the Body saying, well, you know, Mean Gene, let's go to Canada and see how that Mountie's doing. You know, those vignettes. And boy, that was great era. It was a great era, a great time of wrestling in the 80s and the early 90s.
Yeah, a couple of months ago I had Larry Zbyszko on, and he was telling me, you know, back in that era, wrestlers were literally being targeted. Their cars were being turned over. They were being stabbed. They were being shot at, because obviously in this day and age, social media can be a good thing, but obviously it's ruined the illusion of the business a little bit. We see these wrestlers' real lives a bit too much, don't we? There's no such thing as kayfabe anymore. We know. Even if you're a young kid, young kids have access. They have access to phones and tablets, so they can see all of this stuff, can't they? It's it's not believable anymore.
It's a good thing and it's a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing because now the kids can watch, but it's a bad thing because now the grown-ups can't believe in it anymore. It was a good time when the people were really getting mad at the bad guys. You know, they wanted to hit them. I remember the old ladies wanted to hit them with their purse. You know, they'd come out, they just wanted to kill the wrestlers. But it was a good time because you knew you were doing a good job and you were convincing them that it was true. But then again, you know, it was an era that was different. You know, I'm going to tell you something. You're bringing me to something I think you may not know, and I like to tell things to people that just in our era, different times. But did you know, Chris, that before the WWF, any time from when I started from 77 to 85, everything before 85, all the small territories I did all my career, when you'd get in the ring, sometimes you'd have a lot of fat heels, like fat guys. They look like they're beer drinkers, and they're stupid, and they're just big lumberjacks or whatever, Yeah. And the truth was, from the day I went into the wrestling ring in '77, the minute you locked up, you took that first wrestling hold. When you lock up at the beginning of the match, the heel would take control of the match, and it was the heel that would call every spot, every movement in the ring. When it's time for you to shine, when it's time for him to shine, the heel was the brilliant guy in the ring. While they were all looked at like idiots, they were the ones who were the smartest guys. And I remember I was like a couple of years in the business. I was getting pretty good because I was wrestling since I was 4 years old and in the pool and everywhere. But when I got to 17 years old, I started. But at 20, I thought I really was a good worker. Then I thought. And I went to my father, a little arrogant. And I said, Dad, I think I'm one of the best wrestlers now in Quebec. And my father looked at me and he says, let me tell you something, son. He says, it takes 5 years to become a good wrestler. And that was working like 7 days a week, 6 days a week. It takes about 5 years to become a good wrestler. But until you worked as a heel, you're never going to be a good worker. You have to be a bad guy and a good guy to become a good wrestler.
Right. Okay. Interesting. What did you enjoy doing more? Or what did you think was easiest or more enjoyable to do? Be a face or be a heel?
Well, when they asked me to start laughing at the United States and having fun about it, being a heel is a great thing, Yeah. Being a heel, and I wasn't the type of heel that was the heel that got cheap heat. Like, I wasn't the guy who went the simple things. I didn't look at a fat person by the ring and say, oh, you're fat. Oh, that was called cheap heat. The heat that I like to get was the doing everything behind the referee's back. Like, so he wouldn't see it when I cheated. When my brother Raymond and we cheated, the fabulous Rougeau brothers with Jimmy, they could never see it. The referee would try to catch us. We'd dare him to try to catch us cheat. And that was the real good heat. It was the storylines. There was something else I wanted to say about that heat also. It'll come back to me. Go ahead. But it was good heat that we had. Anyway, go ahead. It'll come back to me.
No, I was just going to say, everybody that I've ever spoken to who has been a face and a heel, they always say they preferred being a heel because you just have more fun with it, and it's a bit more. It just comes to you a bit more naturally because you're basically just being yourself. You're just being a bit of a dick to people. Where it's harder to be liked. It's harder to be a baby face. It's harder to get everybody behind you because there are going to be people who don't like you.
Anybody can be babyface, but to be a good heel, it takes something special. And what I liked also when I was a heel, like especially when we turned heel for the first time, Raymond and I, in 87, I believe. Yeah, in 87, we turned heel. It was like we had the job to laugh about the Americans, but the Americans in the real life, a lot of them were not nice to us, the French Canadians and the Canadians in the dressing room. They were prejudiced. Sometimes Raymond and I or Pat Patterson were speaking French, or Ricky Martel, and some of the guys would go complain like, hey, stop speaking French, because they thought that we were speaking against them or something. And every time they come to wrestle in Canada, they would lose money on their money because their dollar was worth a lot more than our Canadian money. So if, for example, they made example of $2,000 one night, well, when they got home, they had about $1,200 left because their money wasn't worth. So they'd hate to come and wrestle in Canada. They really had this hatred towards the foreigners. So they made us feel like that during our career when we were good guys in the dressing room. So when we had the job to laugh at them, boy, did I have a revenge there, and I have a blast. And then what I would do, I wouldn't, like I was saying, I wouldn't get that cheap heat. I wouldn't do the easy stuff. What we do was something like, example, it was Independence Day on the 4th of July. And then we come in on a promo with our little American flag and we say, hey, we're Jacques and Raymond. We're the fabulous Rougeau brothers. And we want to wish you a happy Memorial Day today. But it wasn't the right birthday, and people would be so pissed off. They'd say, you stupid idiot. Don't try to say you're Americans. You're Canadians, because we had supposedly moved to Memphis, Jimmy Hart. And so those were the good heat, where you really get to the core, so it wasn't the easy heat. Oh, you're ugly. Oh, you got no. It was thought heat, and that's what I think brought our characters with a lot of credibility. Yeah,
absolutely. If you want to piss off Americans, just talk about America. Simple. Always gets them going. Always gets them going.
And you always, and if you really want to touch up good, you always tell them, you're a funny country here. We get sick, we go to hospital, it doesn't cost anything. How come you pay here when you go? And it's like, we have the insurance, the free insurance, and that would really get into them. Like, you're not better than but we were better than them in one way. So that would really get them where they had no answer. It was like, because the real heels, the real haters would say, excuse my language, but not you. But the smart people would say, that's right, you're right there. We should have that too, So it was great heat,
Yeah. Rather than just being insulting, and you were like you were coming across as better than them. So I think it's smarmy, isn't it? It's
or that we thought we were better.
Well, yeah, that you thought you were better. It's the same here. We've got the free healthcare as well, so that's something that that British wrestlers always use to piss off Americans as well. Always brilliant. I want to just come back to something that you said before. You mentioned that you had the short little program with Bret Hart as well. Obviously, you were Intercontinental Champion, a huge moment, probably arguably the defining moment of your career. It's a huge honor. My favorite championship, all of my favorite wrestlers have been Intercontinental Champion. But you only held it for 2 days. Obviously, a super short reign. I think, I'm not trying to sound horrible, but one of the shortest.
No. And those are facts. Yeah. And I'm going to explain that to you. Because maybe you don't know why it happened.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah, why was it such a short reign? Like, how did that go down?
I worked 4 years with Bret the Hitman Hart. I worked 2 years as a baby face with Raymond, and then they were heels. They had Jimmy Hart for 2 years, and then finally we switched heels, moved to Memphis, Tennessee, and they turned babyface, the Hart Foundation. So we worked another 2 years with them around the world. We worked in the Kingdom, United Kingdom, and Europe, all with the Harts for like 4 years. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so Bret Hart, I must tell you, I love the guy. And I had a run with him it wasn't for the Intercontinental, but my last month run there as the Mountie before they canceled my career there as the Mountie. But I got to tell you something. Bret is the greatest, nicest guy, to be around, but he's a hard businessman. He does not like to do favors to just anybody. He had this different philosophy of becoming a superstar, which he managed to do very well. He had a different philosophy where if you lose, it's not good for your character or this. But we're all working together, so it was hard to do business. So I know for a fact that when Bret had to drop the title to Piper on the pay-per-view coming, he didn't want to do it. So what Vince did, so he took me as the guinea pig to put like in between us just to do the switch, to get it from me to him. And even Bret, when he lost to me for those 2 little days I had it, he came in with 104 fever in the ring that night when he defended the title with me 2 days, and he announced it. He had the announcer announce that, I'm sick, I'm dying, but I'm going to wrestle anyway. So I beat a dead guy. Finally, I didn't beat anybody. I just beat a guy that was sick and dead. So Bret was hard like that in life, and that's why they had this screw job with Bret, also with Shawn Michaels in Montreal, because Bret didn't want to give the title back to Vince when he was going for another company, so that's So Bret was a hard guy to deal with, and therefore that's why the title was switched to me. But I got to tell you a quick story on that. It's so funny because I was so amazed when they brought me in the dressing room and they told me I was going to become the Intercontinental Champion. Holy shit! That was a dream come true. But he said, "Don't get too excited, Josh." I said, "Why?" He says, "You're going to lose it in 2 days." I said, "Okay," but I took advantage of that because what I did is I called home in Montreal. And I called a guy called André Rousseau. He was a guy in a newspaper, the biggest newspaper in Montreal. And I called him up. I said, André, he's a friend of mine. So I'm going to say, André, something amazing happened tonight. I became an Intercontinental champion around the world. It's the biggest deal I've ever had. Can you put a picture in the paper of the Montreal? Because I always took care of my fans at home and that. So he says to me, Jacques, it's 11 o'clock at night. I just won the time. He says, 11 o'clock at night. He says, can you call me on Thursday? We were, let's say, on Monday. He says, can you call me on Thursday? And I said, no, I can't. No. You got to put the picture in now because Thursday I won't be champion anymore. And we laughed about that. So I got the big picture in the paper, and then 2 days later I lost it on pay-per-view. But that was kind of fun to work with Piper also, just to give the belt to him. He's such an icon, so. Yeah. So I had some great positions in WWF, some great angles and stuff. It's fun.
Were you at all annoyed, angry, frustrated that you were only given it for 2 days? Would you have liked more of a run?
No, I was very proud. I was very happy that because I had a chance to take a picture with the belt, and you have no idea how many pictures when I go sign in Comic-Cons and stuff like that, they all have the belt. The Mountie has the belt. So it's like, wow, still 30 years later, everybody's showing me my picture with the belt, the Intercontinental. So, hey, it lasted more than 2 days finally.
Brilliant. You mentioned in there how like the character was over not long after that, like within months, the Mountie character was gone. But then it's safe to say you had a pretty impressive comeback. Coming back as the Quebecers, coming back as a tag team that went on to be tag champions 3 times. You know, one of the whenever the discussion comes up about who are the greatest tag teams of all time, the Quebecers is always one of those names that comes up, and people say, people don't talk about the Quebecers nearly as much as they should do. Like, how did the pairing come about for the Quebecers? Because I don't know, as some people might not be aware.
Wow, that's a good story. I'm fixing to tell you a good story now.
Pierre, I don't know if I'm saying the surname correctly.
Carl, it was Carl. His real name was Carl.
Yeah.
Carl Ouellet. And what were you going to say? Go ahead. What were you going to say about Pierre?
I was just going to say, I don't know if many people are aware, but he is PCO in Ring of Honor, still
now
wrestling.
I think he's still going as Frankenstein now. He's still going at the Impact Wrestling, I think, or something. He's incredible. I got to tell you the story. So here we are. I just come out of the Mountie gimmick, and I'm so, so I have a year off. I'm taking a year off. My wife has my first child, so I spend time and helping her and all that, and giving the bottle and all that good stuff, and changing the diapers for about a year. And then finally, in the meantime, I get a call from Carlos Colon, who promotes Puerto Rico.
Yep.
And so he does an independent federation there. So he asked me to go do a main event against Abdullah the Butcher. So I say, sure, I'll do that. So I go wrestle Abdullah in the main event. So during the day, I'm on the beach in Puerto Rico, and this guy comes and he taps on my shoulder. And I turn around and he says, hey, salut Jacques. Il dit, moi, je m'appelle Carl. So I said, you speak French, tu parles français? He says, yeah. He says, so we talk a little bit, and he says to me, I'm on the first match tonight. He says, I don't want to bother you, but he says, would you mind just checking my match out? And I'm looking at him and I'm saying, hey, a French Canadian like me, he comes from my home. Sure, I'll do that, Carl, for sure. So I watched his match and I was amazed. He was like Gumby. The green little toy you had when you were young that you could bend and torch? Gumby. It was called Gumby. Anyway, and he was like that. He would take crazy bumps on the floor on the cement. He'd get right back up like it didn't hurt him and nothing. And I looked at his match and I said, wow. So then when he came after the match, after the evening was done, after my match, he came to see me. He said, Jacques, did you have a chance to see my match? He actually let me have my match first, with Abdullah. I did my business, and then he waited till the end, and then he came to see me and asked me, did you see my match? I said, yeah, man, I saw your match. I was very, very impressed. I said, you know what, Carl? I said, let me get home. And I said, in 4 days, call me at home. He says, because during the day when I was on the beach, he told me, he says, Jacques, he says, for 10 years, I've been trying to send tapes and cassettes to the WWF. But he says, nobody's responding. Nobody's answering back. And as we were saying before, it's not sometimes what you could do, but it's who you know. So he had no contacts, and he was a great performer. So then anyway, long story short, I said, call me in 4 days. So when I got home, I get the call, and he calls me up. And I say, hey, in the meantime, while the 4 days had passed, I called Vince up. And I told Vince, I said, Vince, I got this guy. I think I'd like to be tag team with him. I think we could do really good for you. We could do some good business for you. He's good. And Vince had such confidence in me. So he just turned around and he said, Jacques, you call me and you let me know when you're ready. That was his words. So for 4 months, we set up a ring in the backyard at my home up in the hills. And he would travel like 2 hours a day to come up and just practice. And we practiced those moves, the big tower that we do off the top rope there, when he jumped on the top. And we'd put dummies in the ring, because we didn't want to hurt people, because you have to land exactly the top of the shoulders on the guy, or if you land his bottom part, you'd kill him. He was 300 pounds, Carl. So we practice all those moves, the leg sweeps and all the funny moves that we did that we needed each other. It was a different kind of wrestling that we were doing. And when I called Vince, it was in the fall. I said, Vince, I said, whenever you're ready, we're ready. He says, okay. He says, how about next week? He says, I said, next week. So I told Carl, and he couldn't believe it, and so we went to the Manhattan Center in New York, and our first match, they introduced us Johnny Polo as our manager, and we were wrestling the Steiners, Rick and Scott Steiners, who were the tag team champions at the time, and we stole the belts the first night that we came in. The first night. So imagine Carl on the beach tapping on my shoulder, and about 4 months later, he's world tag team champion in the WWF.
Amazing. Awesome. So Vince, obviously, you guys must have had a good relationship then with Vince McMahon if he had that much faith in you.
Then it was awesome. Well, he trusted us because, I'd already been working for him maybe for 5 years as the Fabulous Rougeau brothers and stuff. Yeah. And he knew we were businessmen. We never went out in nightclubs. We didn't drink. We didn't take pills. We didn't take steroids. We were in the gym. We were on the flight every day. We were on time in the dressing room every night. And that means a lot, especially that we were good workers. So, when you have a boss that has guys talent like that are reliable, it's like, holy shit. So he knew, and then he knew our family, 4 generations of wrestling. He knew that we were real wrestlers. So he had confidence in me. His confidence was at 100% at those days.
Are you still in touch with Carl with PCO now?
A little bit here and there. We don't really associate that. The business is funny, the business kind of tear apart people, and sometimes people get different side of the stories of things that happen between the bosses and the employees. But of course, if you take for the employee, you're never going to be on the good side of the boss. So it puts you in awkward positions, conflict of interest. So so we kind of left each other go a little bit. But when we cross each other, I see him. Hey, how you doing, Carl? And I always have good words for him. So how can he not like me? In the deep bottom, he may not like me for some things that happened with Vince after that, where he had the other side of the story. But that's all irrelevant, because if you look at the history of it, Carl Ouellet would not be in wrestling today probably if he'd never met me in Puerto Rico, or maybe he would have, because he was such a good talent. But at least I'm the one responsible for him having his career like he did at that time. So I think Carl has a lot of respect for me, I'm sure. If you talk to him one day, I'm sure he has a lot of respect for me.
Yeah, I'm sure he would have made it eventually, but you obviously got his foot in the door a lot quicker.
Let's just say the first night become a world tag team champion. I think that's good.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's a good first day on the job, isn't it? That's not bad at all. What just to pick your brains a little bit, what did you make? Obviously, he's been most well known over the last however many years as PCO in Ring of Honor. What did you make of Ring of Honor and their news recently of the closing down?
Wow, you know what? I got to tell you something that's going to blow your mind, my friend Chris. I'm going to tell you something really. When Vince and I had my falling out in 95, I think it was 95, I think, and I turned the TV off. I have never watched a wrestling show in 30 years.
Wow.
I had my own promotion. I created my 20-year promotion in Quebec, which I did a great, successful, family-orientated show where there was no kicks, no punch, no girls, no offense, ladies. It was just I didn't want no sexual content because I was for kids. I had no beer in the arena. I was selling out my arenas, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people, not allowed to sell one beer because I wanted the kids to have fun and not the parents to be drunk. And the thing was also, it was like, I had a different kind of show. If ever you go and you check that out there, Spectacle Familial, Jacques Rougeau, you'll see some clippings where you have Spider-Man against the Mummy. You have Darth Vader interfering against the what was the other one? Darth Vader, and who was the other one? The big Chewbacca. You know Chewbacca? So I had them had confrontations. I had midget. It was like a Walt Disney kind of show. Like I said, there was no kicks and no punches, but go see my show. You wouldn't believe how with storylines and comedy, how you could put a really great family show together. And I succeeded for 20 years, and I actually did very well for myself. And I didn't want to watch the wrestling on TV to get their ideas. I wanted to be original. I wanted everything coming from my brain and my friends and my talent that we're putting all our heads together to create these storylines. And then, so that's why. And so now people ask me sometimes, what do you think of John Cena? I heard his name, but I don't know how he works. Or Stone Cold. Well, I know he does this, but I never seen him work. I say, yeah, all the talent. Who else are the other talents that I heard of that really made it big? I don't know them. I have no idea who they are. So if you ask me today, like, you know, those Roman Reigns and those, I never seen them in the ring, you know, and all those. So I stopped when my character and Vince stopped. Our friendship stopped. It was painful inside because it wasn't done correctly. Yeah, you know, from them. And I had a grudge, and I held that grudge on my legs so bad. And I'm such a funny person in life, Chris. You don't know me, but just to put you in context, you have the very, very normal people here, and you have the autistic people, let's say here. Let's say I'm about here, like almost normal. But anyway, I have hard time in life of comprehension of the reality of things sometimes. And I was like that since I was young. I've discovered that as I grew older, that I had a missing link in me, but it's okay because I managed although to get through life anyway. So everything that's emotional, as much as love or hate, I always see it bigger than it is. You know, it always seems to appear bigger. So that's why when I turned the page on Vince, I really turned the page. And when he hurt me a little bit, it hurt me a lot. More than he thought. So I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. That's crazy, though. That's honestly, of everything that you've said so far in this interview, I think that's the one that's blown my mind the most. Like, that you've just not paid any attention, like, not in a bad way. Like, it's entirely up to you if you don't want to follow wrestling, but that's crazy. Like, 30 years and not watch wrestling. That's mad.
The only guy I knew was Kevin Owen, because he was my student for 5 years. I'm the one who taught him how to wrestle. He was at my wrestling school for 5 years. So I knew of him. I knew he was a great worker. I knew when I was teaching him in my school, he was always ahead of the other kids. And he always wanted to go fast. And I was saying, hey, we're a group here. You know, you're not alone here. The other guys pay too. So just take your time. And then after 5 years, he couldn't take it anymore. He just took off and did the independent things. And so it went well for him. So he's the only guy I really knew, actually, to be honest. You know,
I'm glad that you mentioned his name, because I was going to ask. I read, because I wanted to see like who you trained, who you'd guided, and the main name that came up was Kevin Owens. Now, anybody who listens to this show, he was my pick for the Royal Rumble last night. He is far and away my favorite wrestler, like my favorite current modern day wrestler. I think he can do literally everything. He can be a face, he can be a heel, intense, funny, serious.
You know, when he came to my school, you know, I told him he was 14 years old when he came to my school, and he wanted to start running in the ropes, and I said, whoa. When you're, you know, in life they say before you run, you gotta
walk,
yeah, but not at my school. At my school, I wasn't born walking. I was born crawling. So I said, when you come to my school, you're going to learn how to protect your opponents. You're going to learn how to transfer your weight. You're going to learn this and that. And then when you start walking, you're going to walk, and I'll show you how to walk. And then when you walk correctly, I'll show you how to run. And then that's how it was at my school. That's why all the talent that I was surrounded at all my shows, they were so happy to work with me, because I was always going to the basic and the fundamental of wrestling. You can have the most beautiful house in the world on the lake there, but if you don't have a good foundation, your house is going to crumble eventually. You know, so I always took the guys and I always said, let's start with the bottom. And let me teach you especially the first thing was how to take care of your opponent, so him not to hurt. In other words, you pick up a guy for a body slam and you're off balance. Well, you make sure that he falls straight and you fall crooked, because you're the one who put him up there. He gave you his body. He trusted you with his body. So you make sure you put him down correctly, even if it means if you fall on your elbow and you break your elbow, it doesn't matter, because he gave you his body. You take care of his body. And that's how I taught at my school. And that's how it's supposed to be done in wrestling.
So is it safe to say that he was a little bit maybe arrogant when he first came in then?
Yeah, he was arrogant, but so was I. You know, so when I was young too, I was a little arrogant. I thought, I saw him in me. You know, so it's something that I didn't bother that, because he was a likable guy. You know, Kevin Owen was you talk to him, you know, and you put him back in his place, and then he'd come and give you a hug, you know, like he wanted to stay. He'd understand that he went out of bounds a little bit. Then I'd bring him back in line, and we had a great relationship till the day he left. we had a great relationship. I always liked the guy. He knew how to be liked by people. When he gets around the people, the right people, he knows how to be liked. And that was a good quality. And that's probably why he went so far in the business.
Yeah. Even when he hasn't got a title around his waist, he's still one of the top guys, isn't he? One of the top guys in the business. I love him. I absolutely love him. And it was great to read and find out that you trained him, because that made me like you even more.
Well, thank you so much.
You trained my favorite wrestler. That was a really cool little thing to find out.
That's very kind of you to say so.
I wanted to ask something. I don't know if it's a little bit of like a delicate subject. I've never
had no delicate subjects with me.
Okay, brilliant. That's good news. I've never had a chance to speak to anybody about this, because nobody that I've spoken to was really in WWF around this time. I've always wanted to know about Vince McMahon, 1994, the drug trial. Now, I'm not obviously too bothered about what happened in the trial and all that kind of stuff, but I'm always been really interested, like, what were things like backstage? Because obviously there was, I think fans had an idea that there was some sort of drug culture going around. Same in WCW. I think there was always rumors and always suspicions.
Chris, let me cut the small talk. Let's go down to business. It was a walking drugstore. In the dressing room. And then, and the worst one, I hate to tell you that because I had a feud with him, but it was the truth. It was the Bulldogs, because they'd walk in the dressing room and they have needles stick in their butt, and they were walking around like, oh, we're going to have a good fucking time tonight. And they were like time bombs, like walking around. And then you'd go in the bathroom and they were, you could see them. Everybody, I could count on my hand, maybe 2 if I'm lucky, the guys that weren't on steroids.
Oh, wow.
Everybody was on steroids. Everybody. But I can think of Tito Santana, who wasn't. Ricky Martel, who wasn't. Mike Sharp, that wasn't. Lombardi. Me and Raymond. Now I'm running out of. Lanny Poffo never was on steroids. But, I'm trying to think now. Who else wasn't on steroids? There's not many that wasn't on steroids. They were all on the juice. Because Vince, he knew that the kids, they liked the superheroes. The big guys, the guys that are all bubbled up there. Kids would look at that, and he made a lot of money with that. And I remember during the time of the trial, it was so funny because there was a few rumors in the backstage, of course, that were going to trial. I didn't give a shit because we weren't on steroids, for us. But, we didn't care. And we were actually proud at that time because a lot of the guys, which I had heat with that didn't like me, because they would come and ask me to pee in a little test in a pot for them, when we had a pee test. And they'd ask me to do it. I'd say, no, I'm not getting implicated in your shit. It's your shit. You get out of it, and that's how it was. And I remember they were passing bottles. It was a really joke. And then you could see guys, and then you still had some guys that after the tests were going on, supposedly random, you had a certain time, like 3 weeks to be clean so it didn't show off. Well, then you see some guys that were as big as they were. And then, so I believe there was conspiracy in there, and I also think that when the trial happened, there was a little buzz going on in the dressing room. Like someone, I'm not going to say who, but someone came to me one time and said, "Jacques, you don't ever say nothing about steroids. You say nothing about steroids." So, and I said, "No, it wasn't in my interest to kill my business either." But anybody who had 2 eyes and looked at TV. If they can't figure out that the guys are on steroids, it's because they're not too smart. Because when you have a guy that's 300 pounds and has about a 5% fat, and then you can see the veins coming out of the arms, and the only thing is left is muscles and veins. You got to understand, I've been working out all my life. I can't count the hours I spend in the gym. And you want to see a good muscle? This is a good muscle because this muscle is 61 years old, but it's never got 20 inches. But it always stuck between 17 and 19. 2-inch difference in 41 years of career, because sometimes I worked harder. I got heavier. When you train heavier, you get mass muscle that grows. But I was always there, so it's something I know about. And when someone come up to me and tell me, like, I'm not on steroids, and I'd say, well, I'm not a man, like hell. Why
do you feel the need to tell me you're not on steroids? That tells me that you are on steroids.
Really?
You know what I mean?
Anyway, but you know what? That's how we got rich. That's how a lot of the teams, not the Ultimate Warrior, the Bulldogs, all the big guys that were coming out like that, they made money. They made tons of money, and Vince liked that. Vince was into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Crazy. I had no idea. Like, I had this image in my head thinking like, oh, were people literally just like going around with bags of needles and hanging them around? And I thought, no, surely it couldn't have been that bad. But it sounds like it really was like needle for you, needle for you, needle for you.
Well, it wasn't so obvious. Like they didn't come in and, but they had, you could tell they're all going to the bathroom in one night at the same time, when they had certain towns where you could see there was action there, holy shit, the guys seem happy tonight, but the worst ones were the Bulldogs with I don't know, that was traumatizing for me to see them with needles up their butt, because I was, like I said, I wasn't a real fighter either and stuff like that. So when I saw those guys and I was saying, fuck, they're really nuts. They're really idiots, they're all on steroids. I remember one time going in the dressing room with Macho Man on a Monday night. I came in the dressing room and I said, how you doing, Randy? Oh, good, brother. How are you? And on Tuesday night, I came in the dressing room. I hadn't seen him since. I said, hey, Randy, how you doing? Fuck off! Okay. Okay.
All right, bye.
It must be a mood change or something. But, it's like, that was steroids. And if you want to see if someone is on steroids, that's another way. Not only the thin skin, but the moods. People, they change moods.
Swings,
they're different persons at different times.
Crazy, absolutely crazy. Like,
it was a jungle. It was a jungle then.
Yeah, it sounds like chaos. Like the main thing that I wanted to ask about it was like once the trial happened and the company were found as Vince was found as not guilty. What changes were made? Like how did things change backstage? Was everybody on edge a little bit? Did anybody feel like, oh shit, they're trying to find
the persons that were concerned? They were on edge. The persons that needed or that they, because a lot of the talent, I must tell you, like Ultimate Warrior, he was the worst worker in the world, but he looked fantastic when he shook the ropes with all his muscles and this. So he was counting on his muscles to make his living. So the ones that could not do that anymore because of the steroids being taken away from them, those were the guys that were worried because they didn't know how to work.
Right.
The guys that knew how to work, you had some smaller guys. I remember like Tully Blanchard, a couple of guys that were small. They just IRS. There was a couple of guys that didn't. You look at them, they didn't need Jimmy Garvin, Ronnie Garvin. They were straight. And so they had talent and they were working like that. But all the other guys that were overbilled, those are the guys that they were really, really worried in the dressing room for sure.
Yeah. Wow.
But they found a way around it. I was there. I don't know what the way was, but they were still as big. They were still the guys that needed to. They were still as big, and there were no more steroids supposedly.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Like that's what I was thinking, because like the trial came in, and then you would have assumed everything changed. But that's what I was thinking as you were talking. I thought to myself, well, those guys never got any smaller. They always stayed quite big. So
that's it. They start saying, a lot of the guys will start saying, oh, now we're taking creatine. Creatine is something that you could sell in a gym. It's a stimulant, but it's not steroids. But so that was the story. Whether it was true or not, I don't know, because I wasn't on steroids. I got to tell you a funny story too. I got to tell you something that nobody knows. I like telling those stories. We're going. My brother and I, Raymond, we've been in 2 years in the business now. We're two baby faces as the Rougeau brothers, not fabulous yet, but just the Rougeau brothers. And we're going down from LA to San Diego on the West Coast. And we're going down. And one night I look at Raymond and I say, I'm 6'3". And my brother Raymond's 5'10", and and I'm saying to Raymond, I said, "Hey Raymond, you know what? Look at what's going on here. Look who's getting the push. Like, look who's always having the lights on them, the spotlights. It's the guys that are big." So I said, "Why don't we try a little cycle of steroids?" I asked my brother Raymond, and my brother Raymond says, "No, we're not doing it." So I dropped the subject, and it never came about again in my career.
Wow. Huh.
But my height and my knowledge of wrestling, with a body like I could have been more than 2 days Intercontinental Champion.
But I'm guessing that looking back on it, you're glad you didn't do it.
I'm sorry?
I'm guessing like when you look back on that now, are you glad that you didn't take the steroids and go down that path?
You know what? If anybody wants to go and see my Facebook, I'm open publicly. Go on Jacques Rougeau. You'll see a picture of me and my girlfriend. And just about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, I posted I'm lying on the floor in a ring. I'm 61 years old, and I do a nip-up. You know how you land on your feet?
Yeah.
And I'm 61 years old. Go look at it. All the boys that are there, they're about 20 years old, 25 in the ring. I went for a little show to do a little thing with Santa Claus where I pulled his beard off as the Mountie. It was funny. Really reminiscing my old career, I guess. I had a good time. A 10-15 second segment. So anyway, when I was there during the day, I just got in the ring. And for the fun of it, I wanted to see, can I still do a nip-up? I laid on my back. I put my hands in the back of my head. And I swung my feet, and I'm back on my feet. And all the boys around there going, Aiden Prince, a lot of the guys going, wow, man, it's landed on your feet. And I'm 61 years old. So that's where it paid off.
I'm 32 and I can barely get up off the floor, even slowly.
But
honestly.
It's mostly technique. But to be honest with you, if I would have took steroids, I never could have done what I do today. I play tennis. I do everything. I could go water ski right now if I want to. So, it's amazing. And the guys that are steroid in those days, more than half of them are dead today that used to work with me. Yep. They're almost all dead.
Yep.
Heart attacks. Because when you put steroids in your body, you enhance the strength that you have, but your heart was not built for that.
Yeah. When you were telling me the story, then pretty much all of the names that you were saying, I was like, oh my God, dead. Oh, he's alive. Dead. Like it's so sad. Like dead in there, dead before they hit 50 and 60. A lot of those great names.
So thanks to my brother Raymond.
Well, thanks to Raymond. There we go, Raymond. We have Raymond. Raymond, if you're somehow listening to this, thank you so much for your services, for your good deed. A name obviously that I'm very attached to, being British, that you mentioned in there was the Bulldogs, Dynamite Kid, and the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. Now, I'm not going to ask about the fight. Because you've talked about the fight so many times. Everybody asks about the fight. I like to try and ask slightly different questions.
Tell me something else. What you want to know about it, though. Tell me what you want.
So I think the main thing that I want to know is, did you guys ever patch up your differences?
No.
Was that literally it? Just the fight happened?
No. Well, if you remember that earlier in the podcast, I told you I'm a funny kind of guy. Remember?
Yeah.
The emotions that I lived were horrible. I almost quit the business after he beat me up in the dressing room, the first time. And before I made my comeback, I almost quit the business. That was my life. I never would have had the Mountie. I never would have had the Quebecers. He almost caused my life. So it was the hatred in my heart, and that was so huge and big. And I remember a funny thing happened. I got to tell you this, though, because after I did my comeback, they quit 2 weeks after. They quit the business completely. Because Vince had got us together, and they were saying, hey, listen, you take a punch, he takes a punch, you take a knife, he takes a knife, he's going to take a gun, you're going to take a gun. Where's this going to stop? And there were some things that were making him believe that I was going to make another comeback if ever he came back on me. So what did I want to say about that? Yeah, so I'm going one time about 5 years after the event that happened, and I'm going to Manchester, England. I think that he was living around there near Manchester, and I'm going for a Comic-Con, and when that happened, that thing, my comeback, everybody was all, hey Jacques, I didn't want to hear about it. I didn't want no congratulations. I didn't want no glory for that. That was the worst time of my life. I just wanted to forget it. I just wanted to put it behind me. So when I got in the Comic-Con in Manchester, we're in a big hotel, and there's Hacksaw Jim Duggan, there's Crush, there's Iron Sheik, and the Iron Sheik, he fell in love with me after that thing with the Bulldogs, because I think he may have been intimidated too by them. So he, when I did my comeback, he's one of the first guys that tell me, he didn't say much, but I knew that he was happy that I defended myself, that I took care of myself. And when I got 5 years later, he looks at me, I come in the room, and everybody's there, the fans, and he starts going with his mustache. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. You come to this place, the Jabroni's place, and you come here. I can't believe it. And I'm saying, and I'm going like, please shut the fuck up. Like, please don't say that. It's like, I don't want, and I was in Paris the night before. And the night before I flew into Manchester, I'm going to tell you a secret. I was scared shitless.
Oh wow, really?
I was scared shitless that he was going to send someone to do a comeback and because he was known as the biggest bully of the business, and he lost his reputation with me. And I said, that guy's never going to forgive me. He's going to never let it go. He's going to make a comeback one day. And then when he started screaming like that to Sheik, I was, holy shit, please. I was hoping people would forget about what had happened, like the story. And I was scared shitless. And I swear to God, when I left the hotel, I went right to the airport, and it was like, and when I got on the plane and I was going back home, I was like, oh man, I made it alive out of England, and because like I say, I'm not a real fighter, I'm an entertainer, so it was heavy on my shoulders when I went back there.
Wow, it's a mad story. Like I've read it so many times, and that's why I didn't want to ask you, like, oh, how did the fight start and all that kind of stuff, because everybody knows that. But why? Here's something I always wonder about it. Obviously, it was a massive fight. Beat the shit out of each other. Threatened to put him in a wheelchair the next time you saw him, and all that kind of stuff. Why didn't you lose your job? Like, why didn't Vince? Is it just because Vince had that confidence in you and you had that good relationship?
No, I don't think so. I think he was more. I don't think so. Maybe a little bit of that. If you ask me now, honestly, I think because Vince was afraid of the Bulldogs too. And I think that all the time, and I think that all the times that they were doing bad jokes to people, cutting their pants in the winter before they went to the airport or stuff like that, or things that were not nice, or shaving a guy's hair or losing his character, and killing characters, and there being the evil. And I think that Vince, when the boys would laugh about it, because there was always something about ego, all these egos together. And it was like, I think that Vince, when the Pat Patterson or the boys would come up and they'd tell a story and Vince was not too far, I think he would laugh almost like many of people that are afraid to face their bullies in life. You could be sitting in a class at school and you have this guy who's always doing dirty jokes, or being mean, and then he looks at you and you have two choices. You could either look at him and laugh at his funny joke, because then he's not going to touch you because you're on his side, or you could make a man out of yourself and not look at him and not acknowledge him. But so I think that Vince was afraid of the bullying, and I think that's my thought anyway. I may be wrong completely, but I think that when he was like half encouraging it and half saying, "Hey guys, that's not funny," I think it wasn't the way maybe to approach it, because the Bulldogs were saying, "Oh, okay, he heard it, he laughed a little bit, but he didn't fire us, so I think we could keep going." And then it got worse and worse. And the worse it got, I think the worse Vince got scared of it. So when I stood up, the only guy who stood up to them, the only one. And I think Vince was like, he realized that he screwed up, that he shouldn't have let it go that far. But he was happy at the same time that it happened when they gave their notice. Because now, and he knew that if ever he didn't do something about it, and I quit the business, the Rougeau family quit the business because of his ignorance, because he let it go, he would have had a really bad reputation. Maybe, am I making sense? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, to me, it sounds like he respected the fact that you stood up to them as well, because nobody else did.
I think so. Maybe I think so.
Yeah. Wow. It's one of them stories that we'll always hear about for the rest of time, I'm pretty sure.
And just for those who didn't know the real story, they could always go on Dark Side of the Ring, because last year they showed an episode. I couldn't believe it. They called me to ask me what happened. I was 30 years later, and I told the story exactly how it was. So if you go see Dark Side of the Ring in the third season and the episode on Dynamite Kid, no, that's not Dynamite. Yeah, is it Dynamite Kid? What's his real name? Tom Billington.
Billington.
Tom Billington. So if you go see the third season, go see the story of what happened with us, and you'll understand what I went through. And now that you know that I'm not a real fighter, and that it was so hard and heavy for me to face mentally, you may understand the situation, how I feel today, and how. But you know what? The bottom line is I love those guys. When we came into WWF, they were amazing. Me and Raymond were looking at them. We had a 20-minute match on Broadway and Madison Square Gardens with them. And it was amazing that we had that notoriety, not even to get beat by them. So, to go in the ring with the guys that were so spectacular. And we looked at them. Every wrestler in the world looked at the Bulldogs like, wow, they're, as much as Hulk Hogan wasn't a single, they were as impressive as a tag team.
Yeah.
They changed wrestling. They were an era. They brought something. So I used to love the Bulldogs. And the funny thing is a year and a half after, I was the Mountie. And here shows up one night that Davey Boy Smith in the dressing room. He came back as a single, and we had a feud with the Intercontinental title, but he was a champion, and I was trying to get his title. And the first night he came back in Philadelphia, he stepped in the dressing room that night, and I was so, oh my God, when I saw on the card, they told me the night before that the Bulldog is coming back. When they said it was Davey Boy, I was a little happier, because I know he was the more stable one. He was the more quiet one of the two. He wasn't quite a fighter as much. He was not as loud as Dynamite Kid. So when I knew that, I was still scared shitless. So when I got into the room that night in Philadelphia, I was sitting down in the dressing room, and I was checking the door from the corner of my eye every minute to see, oh boy, when is he coming in? Because we weren't on good terms now, I could tell you. Yeah. And so when he came in, he came up in front of me and he looked at me and he says, can we speak in the dressing room? And in the toilet. And I looked at him and I was so scared. And I looked at him and I said, sure. But I didn't show it to him. But I was scared shitless. And when we got into the dressing room and we turned the corner, I kept the distance from him in case he wanted to sucker punch me. So I kept the distance. And he turned around and he looked at me, and I could remember it as it was yesterday. He told me, he says, Jacques, he says, what you did to Dynamite, he says, you were right. And he says, I don't want to have any animosity with you. He says, I'd like for us to get along and to be friends. And I looked at him and my heart almost melted. And I took his hand and oh my God, so much tension just came out of my body that night, and then we had a great time in the business. We never reminisced about that. We never looked back at that. And and I loved working with Davey Boy.
That's a really beautiful, touching story that he recognized that, especially for me hearing that story. I don't know if you've ever told that story before. I had no idea about that. That's amazing.
Not really.
As a British wrestling fan, loving the Bulldog, looking up to the Bulldog as a kid. Great. That's beautiful to hear. That really is. Wow. Great. Thank you. Great. Thank you for sharing that. This has been so good. I've learned so many cool stories. My favorite one is still the Koko B Ware story. That's fantastic. That will stay with me for life now. Right, I wanna if you don't mind, I've started doing this with my guests recently, just throwing some random names out there, people that you've worked with in the business.
Just go ahead. I know where you're going. Shoot the names.
Yeah, I'm just gonna shoot some names. If they were cool or not, tell me. If you've got any stories
don't you want to share. Feed me. Go ahead and feed me. Go ahead.
Okay, I would be remiss if I didn't start with Hulk Hogan.
The greatest man on earth in the business. He put me over in Montreal. He did a job for me in Montreal, and he brought up my notoriety in my home and everywhere across the world. So I'll be in debt to that man for the rest of my life.
Awesome. Okay, Ric Flair.
Ric Flair, the greatest wrestler, one of the greatest of all times. And I'll tell you something real fast, 2 seconds. We're in Atlanta, Georgia. I am 19 years old. I'm a punk. And we're in the Omni in Atlanta, actually doing the TV tapings at TBS, Turner Broadcast System. And I have a dark match and a TV match with him. I'm going to make him look good for 6 minutes. I have a match with him. So we get in the dressing room and I say, I'm so nervous. He's the world champion, and I'm going like, holy shit, I'm a young pup. And so I go to him. I said, Rick, is there something, but the heels were calling the matches in those days, remember? So I told him, I said, is there anything, what can we do? He said, don't worry, kid. He said, we'll get in the ring. We'll have fun. And he went in the ring and a 6-minute match for 5 minutes. He made me duck underneath, drop kick off the top. He made me shine. He was taking bumps. He made me look like a champion. And the TBS was the only TV station in the United States that was seen across the country. Every other state had their own little TV, but TBS, Turner Broadcast System, they were seen around the country. And he made me look like a king. And at the last minute, he beat me. And when I got back in the dressing room, I told him, I said, Mr. Flair, I said, like what happened? And why'd you do that? And he looked at me and he says, kid, don't worry. He says, you got a great drop kick, by the way. And he says, let me tell you something. He says, if I would have went in the ring and I would have swept the floor with you for 6 minutes, he says, and I would have beat you, he says, I would have beat nobody. Now he says, you came in a little French Canadian with a lot of fire and this surprised me, but I'm better than you and then I beat you. So I beat somebody. What a philosophy. Awesome. What a philosophy.
Yeah.
And I met him at a Comic-Con about 3 months ago. I hadn't seen him since 30 years. I met him 3 months ago. And I came up to him and I told him the story. Do you remember, Rick? And you know what? He looked at me and he didn't remember. And I was beside him, and Diesel was beside him. You know, Kevin Nash? He was right beside him. And Kevin Nash, he looked at us. I kept telling him the story like I just told you. No one was speaking. And then finally Rick was like amazed because he was having his problems with the law there in the States or something, and he was going through a rough time. So when I made him feel so good about himself, and then Kevin Nash looked at me and he looked at Rick and says, that's a great story, man. That's a great story. But it was the truth. He changed the outlook of my philosophy in life. So now when I went into the ring after that, I understood that it was better to make a guy shine before you beat him. Yeah. So you beat somebody. You just don't beat nobody. Yeah, absolutely. Like put you over, but also still get the win himself. Yeah. So he's clever. Better. So he's selfless. Better. Yeah. Brilliant. Awesome. Okay. Shawn Michaels. I love the guy. Shawn Michaels, we worked the Rockers against the Rougeau brothers. We had so much fun. You know, the Shawn Michaels, we did marathon match. You know, like we did about 11 marathon match, which were an hour match. You know, the one who gets the most fall in an hour. And we were rock and rolling in there. Raymond and me and Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels, we were killing the planet. We did it all over the planet. And one day we were in London. We did the hour match, and because there's a 6-hour time change, we flew to Philadelphia, and we had another hour match that night. And so we had 2-hour matches in one day. And the other thing that I'm still so amazed when I think of this story, the last 1-hour match we made, now everything was tight now. We had done about 11 an-hour matches, so we knew that the guideline and where we were going. It was so good, the match. And then we got it to Madison Square Garden. The biggest place, and then Vince says, "Can I have one of those marathon matches? I heard they were great." So we screwed Vince. We actually screwed Vince, and he didn't know. We went into the match, and before we went into the match, you know, every night they were winning 6-5. You know, it was so close. You know, the match, the falls, and then when we got in the gardens, there was 30 seconds left, and it was like 5-5, and Vince is going nuts because he was saying, "Holy shit!" And finally, the time ran out. They rung the bell. And then I went up and I took the microphone. I went on the microphone and I looked at Shawn Michaels. It was all prepared between us. And I looked, except Vince didn't know. And I took the microphone. I looked at Shawn. You think you're going to get away with this? I want overtime. And we went another 11 minutes. We went an hour and 11 minutes. And then finally the Rockers beat us. And the Madison Square Garden's roof just blew off the top. 71-minute match. Wow. That's like a Royal Rumble. But you know, but Raymond was the greatest partner I've ever had because we were brought up in the same family. I knew where Raymond was in the ring without looking where he was. You know, that's the brotherly that we had together. We really were good together. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Okay, another name, Scott Steiner. Scott Steiner, funny guys. When we took the titles from them in Madison Square and Manhattan Center, when Carl came in, the first night we came in, we took the titles off of them. They were really upset. And about 3 weeks later, we got into Winnipeg, Canada, and they, I don't know if you remember a guy called Ludwig Borga. Yes. Yeah. He was in Finland, the big Finland guy, a boxer, you know, bald-headed boxer, a little line there. And he was a tough guy, a real tough guy. And we were in Winnipeg and during the day we were at the gym and stuff like that. So we took off, and then Ludwig arrived, and then the Steiners, when they left, they went and cut the tires on the car of Ludwig Borga that he rented in Winnipeg, you know. And then they went to see Ludwig and they say, "Hey, listen, I don't want to tell you who it is, but the guys, they were two and they had a black Lincoln." And so they described our car. Anyway, it came to them that they stooged that it was us, because they didn't want us to become champions for too long. You know, they worked, so they wanted to put heat on our ass. So when I got word at the hotel from one of the boys, Jacques, you better watch yourself tonight when you get at the arena, because Ludwig Borga is going to kick your ass. I looked at him, I said, what? But why? And then they told me, because you cut the tires of his car. What? And then finally I put two and two together. So when I got to the building that night, you know, before I got to the building, imagine this is after the Bulldog fight. It's maybe a year after or 2 years later. So I don't want no trouble. I don't want no trouble ever again in my life, you know. And so I called the office at 5 o'clock, and I sent a message to the office to Vince. I said, Vince, I don't want you to do nothing because I don't want to look like a chicken either. I don't want to lose my reputation of having the office take care of me, you know. So I said, I just want you to be aware there's going to be a fight in the dressing room tonight, but I'm not instigating it. Someone else put it, and then I explained about the tires. I cut the tires. The Steiner did this and that. So when I got to the building, the what was their name? The Smoking Guns, Billy Gunn and Bart Gunn. They were sitting there, and Ludwig Borga was sitting right on my left when I opened the door. And when I came in, and I was scared shitless again. I was saying, "Holy shit! This big guy's going to kick my ass tonight for no reason." And anyway, and he was just coming in the territory, so he's looking for friends. He was trying to make friends. And the Steiners were loud and they were intimidating. So when I walked in the dressing room, I played that role again. What I always say, I played that role again. I opened the door, and Ludwig was sitting there, and the Smoking Gun, Billy was playing. The blonde one was Billy. Yeah, Billy. He was playing cards with Ludwig, or he's sitting there. And I opened the door. I saw him on the left, and I looked at Ludwig. Ludwig looked up at the door, and he saw me. And the word was out everywhere that shit's gonna hit the fan, right? So then he looked up at me, and before he had a chance to talk, I said, "Can I talk to you outside for a minute?" Like I played the guy like he wants to kick his ass, you know, and then there's something like that, a tough guy. So he looked at me, and you wouldn't believe this. He looked up at me, and he says, "Why?" He says, "Why?" I loved it. You know what? I said, "Don't worry." I said, "We're not gonna fight. I just want to talk to you." I already planted a seed there. So he got up. He didn't have a choice. The boys were all looking, and they were all waiting for this all day. It was the rib of the day, I guess. So when he got up and he went out of the door, as soon as he came out of the door, he got in my face. And before he ever reached me, because I was afraid of a sucker punch. So before he had a chance to reach me, I point my finger right at his face. I said, "Ludwig, you want to kick my ass? Well, you do it. But I didn't cut your tires. But if you want to kick my ass, you do it now."
Wow.
And he looked at me, and he swear to God, it didn't take him 2 seconds. He says, No, Jacques. He says, I believe you. He didn't want to fight either. He didn't want to fight. He's just coming in the territory. And he heard about the Bulldog with me. He thought I was a big tough guy, which I wasn't. It was just the reputation I had. So he didn't want to fight. I didn't want to fight. But the Steiners instigated that whole thing. So if you ask me what I think about the Steiners, I don't know. Funny guys.
Yeah, we'll just say funny guys. That'll do. Funny guys. Okay, awesome. Right, I'm going to ask one more. We've already spoken a lot about Bret, so I wanted to ask about Owen Hart.
Oh,
got to ask about Owen.
The man who owns the name Hart. He had the biggest heart. That man. He was the nicest of all the boys. He was funny. He was in the dressing room. He would make you laugh without hurting anybody, without putting anybody down. I don't think there was a soul in wrestling that didn't admire that man. And for me, Owen Hart will always be the biggest heart of the Hart family. Owen Hart was, and the biggest heart probably of all the boys I've ever met.
Wow. That's beautiful. Yeah, I've spoken to a few guests about Owen, and they've all basically said the same thing. Like, he was everybody's best friend. Nobody had a bad word to say about him. He always made everybody laugh. Made everybody laugh until they cried. Yeah, I spoke to.
And Bret was also funny. I got to tell you something about Bret in case people don't know. Bret, even when I had the fight with the Bulldogs, he never butted in. We kept working night after night. He was a gentleman about that. And another thing I got to tell you about Bret, which I always admired, because Bret was a great drawer. You know, like draw pictures.
Yeah.
And he was an artist. And he would come, and every night he'd come in early in the dressing room. And when there was something funny that happened the night before, let's say the agent banged his head or something, or let's say one of the agents played golf with me and I beat him, and I was bragging about it. So he would come in the next night, and on the chalkboard, he would put me playing golf with the Chief, let's say, Chief Jay Strongbow, where Chief saying, "Hey, you're cheating," you know, like in a little bubble there. "Hey, you're cheating." But he would do some comedy, like comics with his art. He would make all the boys laugh, Bret. He was a really artist, and we always, the Hearts were great. The Hearts were always great. Yeah.
That's a side of Bret that you never hear about. Nobody ever tells that story about him being a funny guy.
Everybody knows from now on when you do a podcast, you ask about the chalkboard on Bret.
No, I will.
They'll have a bunch of stories.
Every single guest that I have on from now on, I will ask that story. Awesome.
You'll think of me when that happens.
I will. I absolutely will. Oh, brilliant! I love that. That's fantastic. Awesome. Right. So I want to circle around and I want to talk about the current day, because we mentioned this at the start before we started the interview today about what you're up to these days. Obviously, like you said, you wrestled until 2018, and then you retired for the third time, officially stepped away. But you've got some pretty big stuff going on this year with Wrestling Academy. I'll let you tell everybody exactly what that project is, coming to YouTube, hopefully coming to TV as well.
Thank you for giving me the time. I appreciate that. And it's the greatest. If you go and take this down, it's wrestling dash, there's a little line there. So it's wrestling-academy.ca. And you guys could get into this too, because the way it's going to happen, it's going to be like there'll be 42 contestants, male and female. And every week there's 4 that are going to be eliminated. But they're going to be eliminated with a panel of judges. There'll be 3 judges that they're going to vote for 40%. But then all the viewers on YouTube around the world will be able to vote to see who they want to keep for 60% of the votes and who they want to let go. And it's not going to be judged by the winner or the loser of the match. It's going to be judged by the performance, the charisma, on the mic. And that's where the judges will be judging on, and the people should judge on, and what a good character. And we got 10 provinces right now from, in case people don't know, in Canada, there's 10 provinces. And I got the best of every province to participate in this thing. They're all coming to Montreal, and it's going to be starting in the month of May. And it's going to be it's the first time a country like that, there's a concept like that where territories are all working together, and everybody's coming together. And all these characters that you could go see on my website, wrestling-academy.ca, you'll see the winners. First of all, there's 4 winners that are going to finish, and they're going to win $5,000 each. And those guys are used to making $100 a night, so they're going to make $5,000. But the biggest prize is they get to be seen by QT Marshall at the Nightmare Factory, one of the biggest schools in America. And he's going to be actually a judge on the last episode. So every Canadian wrestler who tries to go into the United States to wrestle, they can't because of immigration or this or that. But one day the Americans see a talent in Canada that they really like, they get the papers for them and they get them to come in. So I'm going to be a door for them, just a door for them to be seen by QT Marshall and the Nightmare Factory. And that's the biggest prize, because when I started when I was young, I wanted to be famous when I was 17 years old, and I wanted to make money. And I'm giving them both the opportunity to do that. And this is going to be so fun, because it's going to be a national, not a provincial, but a national contest. And it's going to be seen around the world on YouTube. I have my own YouTube channel now, so I'll be promoting that. I'll probably ask you to please help me when it comes to time in May, and people could go on my website and they could see QT Marshall talk, they could see Bret Hart talk, they could see the $1 Million Man talk. Koko B Ware is there, and he's not shaking. But anyway, and you can see all those talents that are wishing the Canadian wrestlers good luck. And it's amazing. And then if you press on all the talent, the part of the talent, you'll see the 42 talent, women and men. You just press on their picture and you'll see the talent. Everybody has a 30-second video of their best moments so far in their career. So it's an amazing project. I'm just going to tell you one thing. COVID killed a lot of people. It gave me the chance to put this together. And to be honest with you, I was a very sad person in the last few years. I'm a passionate guy, and I didn't have any more passion in my life. And when my 3 sons quit the business 3 years ago, I had my last match in a tag team. I asked my kids, would you please do me the same favor that my father did? He finished his match with his 3 sons, me, Raymond, and Armand. 30 years later, I finished my match with Jay, Cedric, and Emile, my 3 sons. So they gave that to me, and then my heart died because my kids, they quit the business. There was no more future for the Rougeau family. And now I thought wrestling was out of me completely. But now, since I started this project, I'm like a baby. I'm like a kid again. I'm giving an opportunity to young people. I'm back into wrestling. I do things of the love of my life. So I'm a very happy man.
Have you got any, have your sons had children? Have you got any grandkids that might get into wrestling one day?
One's on the way.
There we go. Brilliant. So the Rougeau family might make a comeback one day. You never know.
Oh, who knows? But you know what? I'm just so happy. And my kids made me understand something very special in life. Because, you grow up, the kids grow up and they learn. but parents learn too. And, you know, and they showed me something, my kids, that Dad, wrestling is your passion. It's not ours. Like we have a life. Yeah. We have a life too. And I learned to respect that. As hard as it was for me to let it go, I've accepted it now today. So now I'm getting all the other kids and I'm going back to wrestling again. My passion is alive. So don't forget wrestling-academy.ca. Have fun. Take a 20-minute ride there on that website and hope to see you in May or June, July for my 12-week contest.
Absolutely. Sounds awesome. I can't wait. I will definitely be checking it out. And like you said, I'll be more than happy to share it out as well. I'll put some stuff on my YouTube, on my social medias. Where is there other than the website for the show, is there anywhere else that people can find you? Any other websites? Or you said you've got a YouTube channel?
You could go on jacquesrougeau.ca. If you go jacquesrougeau.ca, also you'll see a bunch of things. My stand-up comedy shows I do, my podcast that I did like you. I did some podcasts for 2 years with different people. I get a very interesting podcasts, most of them in French, some in English. And it goes. And I also have my boutique, my shirts, the Mountie shirts, and the match where I had with Hulk Hogan, where I have. So if you want to go buy some merchandise, you can go there too, jacquesrougeau.ca. But to be honest with you, my heart is with wrestling-academy.ca right now.
Awesome. I'm going to put that in the description as well for this episode, for this interview. So guys, check out the About section, follow all the links, and they'll take you to everything that Jacques has been talking about. And that just leaves me to say, Jacques, this has been an absolute pleasure. Honestly, it really has, man. Thank you.
Can you make me happy for 2 minutes?
I will try.
Show the QT Marshall encouragement words for my Wrestling Academy, because that's the prize. Yeah. That's the prize. The 4 winners are going to go there, and I want you to show how credible this project is. So there's 2 interviews of 30 seconds I want you to show. Bret Hart and QT Marshall. Can you put that up now, and then I'll have a comment after?
Yeah, I'll get it. I'll attach it so that it plays at this point of the interview.
Okay, but make sure you put it. QT Marshall and Bret the Hitman Hart.
Absolutely,
Thank you so much. And this is one of my fun interviews I've done. You've opened questions that I forgot about. You brought me back where I forgot. You're a great guy, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot to me. It really does. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and I enjoyed it an absolute ton. So I don't think you could have enjoyed it as much as I did. Like I said at the start, if you enjoyed this, please hit subscribe and please hit follow. Check me out on all the audio platforms. I've got a mailing list for all my episodes to go out on, Patreon, all that kind of stuff, all the usual podcast stuff. Jacques, once again, thank you so much. You've been an absolute pleasure. I never thought I would get the privilege of speaking to you. So
stop it. If there's one thing you got to remember, and everybody out there, there's one thing you must remember: the Mountie always gets his man.
Always. And I did today as well. I managed to get the Mountie, so that's awesome for me. Guys, thank you so much. I'll look forward to catching you again next time, and it's my wrestling podcast.
Cheers.
Hey, this is Bret the Hitman Hart, and I want to wish all the best to Jacques Rougeau and his Wrestling Academy 2022. I know they got a big event coming up, a big contest, and a great opportunity for wrestlers across Canada, men and women, to train and maybe win $5,000 and ultimately get a chance to train with QT Marshall and the Nightmare Factory and maybe get a chance to maybe wrestle for AEW. But all I know is this is a great opportunity for every young wrestler, and I want to just thank Jacques Rougeau for putting the idea together. I hope it works out really well, and may the best wrestlers win.
Hello, wrestlers across Canada. This is QT Marshall with AEW, and I am also the co-owner of the Nightmare Factory. And I just wanted to wish each and every single one of you good luck in the Wrestling Academy 2022. I'll be paying very close attention, following your journey, and I also look forward to being a guest judge. Good luck with everything. Jacques Rougeau is a great mind to be around. I can't wait for this. It's very exciting, and like I said, I will be following your journey and hope to see each and every one of you soon.